Hi everybody, this is Angel and Monisha. We can see the part 2 videos of statements in C programming. Kindly go through the part 1 video for better understanding. Now, we can see this flow control statements in the part 2 video. So now, we can see the classification of control statements. These control statements are generally classified into sequential statements, branching statements, and looping statements. And further, this branching statement is classified into conditional statements and unconditional statements, which are also called as selection or branching statement and jump statements. This selection or branching has if else, nested if else, and switch statement. Unconditional statements is further classified into go to, break, continue, and return. When you are coming to the looping statement, it has for, while, and do while. So in detail, we can see the sequential statements. Sequential statements are the statements which are written one after the other and they are executed in the same order in which we have written the statements. So let us see an example. So in this example, inside the main function, we have a definition part for variable a, which is allocated the value 20, and this particular variable is printed in the next two statements. So these statements are executed one after the other. That is, first the non-executable statement, that is the definition statement, then the printf statements, which are all the executable statements. There is no change in order of execution of the statement. Next comes the branching statement. In branching statement, the order of the statement will be varying depending upon a condition, or sometimes there are also unconditional statements which will be varying the direction of flow of the program. Let us see the conditional and unconditional statements with examples. Let us see the if conditional statement. In if statement, there is a condition or a group of conditions will be written along with the if statement. If those condition brings an answer true, the statement inside the if block will be executed. So let us see the example. So in the example, we have two variables a and b with values 20 and 10. By executing the condition a greater than b, that is 20 greater than 10, the answer will be true. So the printf statement is executed, which is printing a is greater on the output screen. The flowchart also defines the if statement. If the condition is true, the statement is executed, else it is proceed with the next statement, which is lying below the if statement. Next comes the if-else statement. It is generally categorized into simple if-else and if-else. Next comes the if-else statement. It is generally categorized into simple if-else and if-else. Coming to if-else statement, imagine that if you are having two choices, if a particular condition is satisfied, that is, it becomes true, you will be executing one part of the statements, and if it is becoming false, you will be executing another block of the statements. So in such conditions, you can use the if-else statement. Let me say you a real-time example. That is, the statement it is raining is true for this particular situation. The true statement block will be I'll be taking the umbrella with me. If it is raining, the statement is false. That is, if it is not raining outside, I will not be taking the umbrella with me. So these are all the two choices what you have with respect to raining. So now let us come to the program. If condition has another one pair accompanied with it, which is called as else. So if the condition is true. The condition which is following the if statement is true. The block of statement inside the if condition will be executed. If at all it is not true, that is, if it is becoming false, this the statements inside the else block will be executed. So here you can see the flow chart. That is, the condition has two parts, true and false. If it is true, the true statement block will be executed. Else, the condition becomes false. So the false statement block will be executed here. So let us see the syntax and example for this one. So coming to the example, I am just extending the example which we saw for the if statement. That is, with the two variables a and b with values 20 and 10, and with a condition if 20 is greater than 10. The answer is true. Now the statement printf is executed, which is having the content a is greater. So now just let us ulta the values. That is, the a variable is assigned to 10 and the b variable is assigned to 20. So in this example, the condition inside the if statement, that is a greater than b, is becoming false. That is, 10 greater than 20 is false. So the statement inside if block is not executed. Rather, the statement inside the else block is executed. So you have to keep one thing while programming, is that there can exist a program just with an if statement and without an else statement. It is not mandatory to have else statement while you have an if statement. If is a standalone statement. But when you are writing the else statement, you should obviously have an if statement. Now we can see another pair, which is if, else, if and else. So in the situation in which I don't have only two choices but more than two choices, I can go for this if, else statement. It can have more than two conditions, and the first condition is put inside if and the other conditions are put inside the else if statement. Here also it can end either with else, or we can just leave the else statement. So let us see the syntax representation of this one. So if the first condition is put, that condition becomes true, the statement 1 belongs to if block will be executed. Then it will be continued by numerous number of else if statement according to the conditions what you have for programming. Condition, if the condition 2 is satisfied, the statement block 2 will be executed and it will be continued for up to n statements. And finally, it can end with an else statement which may have a default value if those all conditions specified on the top are not executed. Adding to it, I'm again repeating the content that this particular block may or may not have else statement, and it's not mandatory that you should finish the if else if block with the else statement. Next, we can see the nested if statement. As the name says, the nested if statement contains if statement inside another if statement, and it can be of any number. It can contain either an if else part or if else part and so on, or else with many if statement inside another statement. Here also the same rule is applicable. Else block is not the mandatory one. So now let us see the example for this nested if else statement. So in this statement, we are getting a number as an input, and if the number is less than 10, the first condition goes with number less than 10 and it has alternative else part. So if the number is less than 10, inside that particular if block, another if statement is there. This part gives you an example of nested if. So inside the second if we have if the number modulo 2. That is modulo 2 is it is taking the remainder of that particular number after dividing it by 2, and if the remainder is equal to 0. That is, if you get the remainder as 0, it is printed that the number is an even number. So in case if it is not 0, if the remainder is not 0, it is printed it is an odd number. So thus defining the nested if else. Now we can see the switch statement. When you have choices which are not derived from conditions, you can make use of this switch statement. So then bringing true after a few comparison, you will be having choices like choice 1, 2, 3. In such conditions, you can make use of the switch statement, and you have to make it down. The same switch pattern can be implemented by using an if else statement also. So, the main thing is in this particular switch statement, the decision is or the choices will be represented by means of a variable, or also you can use an expression, or you can use a constant for it. So by seeing an example, you will come to know how to deal with this switch statement. So the switch statement is followed by the expression, that is the variable which is carrying the value for the case values. That expression may be a calculation, or a direct constant, or it can be a variable which is carrying a constant value. This particular constant value has to match any of the constants in cases. So if the expression is equivalent to the constant 1, the block of statement under case constant 1 will be executed. And similar thing is applicable for case constant 2 and case constant 3. This particular switch statement may or may not have a default statement. This default statement is similar to that of writing the else statement. This default statement will be having a block to be executed when all the above cases are not satisfied. So the expression will not be containing the constants in the cases, but you have to execute something else when those cases are not executed. So in this example, you have three variables defined: choice A and B, with values 2, 9 and 3 respectively. So imagine the value of choice is 2. So inside the switch, 2 is passed, and that 2 is compared with the cases. So obviously case 2 is matching the choice. So the calculation A minus B will be performed, and it will be printed on the screen. That is printf difference between A and B, that is the value 9 minus 3 is equal to 6, will be printed on the screen. You have to make a note in this program that the value of choice is changed from 2 to 3 in this program. So now this choice is matching with the case 3, and the statement printf product is will be printed on the screen with the value of the product 9 into 3, which is nothing but 27. But in this particular program, we'll be facing a small difficulty or small error, we can say. What it is after printing the case 3, the default statement will also be printed. So looking onto the previous program, after printing the case 2, case 3 and default will be printed. So how can we overcome from this type of errors? Because it is similar to that of a sequential statements. So case 1, case 2, case 3, when your choice matches with case 1, all the lines below the case 1 will also be printed, as there is no jump statements available. So we have to make use of a particular jump statement which is called as break in between each cases so that once a particular case is executed, you can break the block and come outside the switch statement. So let us see the example for that one. And this is the example of the switch statement with break. So imagine that if you are having the choice 2, case 2 will be executed finding the difference between the variables A and B, and it is followed by a break statement. Once it encounters this break statement, it will be coming out of the switch case and it will be executing the statements which are below the switch block. But in default, we don't have a break statement because being default as the last statement in the switch case, there is not it is not necessary that you have to put a break because by default it will be coming outside the switch case. Make a note of that. You have to add a break statement, else you will be facing some output errors which will be printing all the case which is below the right case. Once again, we can recall the point while we are writing the switch case statements. So the expression in the switch should be an integer or a character. In case if it is a character, it should be enclosed inside a single quotes. And the real numbers, that is the floating point numbers, cannot be used for the expressions in switch statement. And the default case can be placed anywhere and it is optional. It's not that you have to always place the default case to the bottom of the switch statement. It can be placed anywhere, and it can be avoided. And the case constants cannot be identical. That is, no case can have the same value. In case if you're having case 1, you cannot have another one case 1. And the cases are compared from top to bottom. So imagine that if you are having two cases with the same value, only the first case will be taken for consideration. The second case will not be taken. And there can be nested switch statement, similar to that of nested if. You can have a switch inside another switch statement too. We can conclude this video with conditional branching statements, and in the next video we can see the unconditional branching statement. Thank you for watching and hope you all will be joining me in part 3 of statements in C.